What's up, buddy fighters? Welcome back to another deck profiling video. And for today, we are going to show you Magic World's Shadow Shade. And yes, this is the buddy, Illusionist Shadow Form Silhouette Joe Revival Buddy. Now first, let's start with the monster. Of course, here we have the buddy. This is the Illusionist of Shadow Form Silhouette Joe Revival Buddy, and it has the ability that every start of each player's attack phase, you may put 2 monsters or spells in total from your drop zone into discard soul. If you put 1 or more, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So this is not basically a buff for Silhouette Joe Revival Buddy, and also a resource card for you. Now it has a counter. Its counter is during each player's attack phase, you may drop any number of souls from this card. If you do, deal 1 damage for each dropped soul. So you can do this like you can drop 1 soul at a time, or if you want to finish your opponent early, you can drop 3 soul at a time. So this is one of the best features of the new Silhouette Joe Revival Buddy. Now here we have some support monsters. The first one is the Shadow Painting Musician Silhouette Hugo. Now, the ability is Act. You may put this card from your hand into the Soul of Shadow Shade on your field. When your opponent is dealt damage by card effect of a Shadow Shade with this card in its soul, drop 1 of your opponent's gauge. When this card is put from Soul of a Shadow Shade on your field to the drop zone, destroy up to 1 card on your opponent's field and return it to hand. So if this card is in the soul and you use the ability of this card of Silhouette Revival Buddy, you can control or reduce 1 gauge from your opponent. And also, when this card is put to drop zone from the soul, you will destroy any of the card in your opponent's field. Now next one, this card is really interesting. We have here Artist of the Shadow Form Silhouette Olivar. Now this card's ability is Act. Put this card into the Soul of a Shadow Shade on your field. When the Shadow Shade monster with this card in its soul attacks, for this turn it gets the power plus 3000, penetrate, and double attack. So it's a really buff for Silhouette Joe Revival Buddy. And then also, during your opponent's turn, when this card is put into the drop zone, put the top card of your deck into the gauge, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So it's a buff and it's also a resource at the same time when that card was put to the drop zone from the soul. Okay, now the next one. Of course, it's a wizard card, though it is very useful. It is the Center of the World Marisu Revival Buddy. Now it has a call cost of 2 gauge. If a spell in your drop zone, this card on the field is reduced by 2. So if there is a spell card on your drop, the monster size is reduced by 2. Then its ability is Miracle of Infinity. Now when this card enters the field, look at the top 5 of your deck and put 2 spells among them into your hand and put the rest into the bottom of the gauge in any order. So yeah, it's a pretty resourceful card for Shadow Shade deck. Now next one is Silhouette Sinbar. Now this act is Rebellion of the Shadow Lion. You may discard this card from your hand. If you do, put a Shadow Shade monster from your drop zone into your hand. So just in case you don't have a Silhouette Joe or Silhouette Olivar or Hugo in your hand, you can still get them from the drop zone using Sinbar. Let's put it here. Now this is just an additional in the deck, just in case you don't have Olive Bar or Hugo in your field, because for you to call Silhouette Joe Revival Body is you need to put this card in top of another Shadow Shade on the field. So this is like an extra card for you to put Shadow Shade upon. So this is Phantom Illusionist Silhouette Joe Illusion. Its abilities of this card on the field cannot be nullified by your opponent's card effects, and you cannot take damage by any card effects. And also at the start of each player's attack phase, put up to one card from your drop zone into discarded soul and deal 1 damage to your opponent, double attack, and soul guard. So that's the only monsters that the Shadow Shade deck has. It's more built on spells. So yeah, just the all monsters you need. Now before I start with the spells, I will say that Shadow Shade has a lot of spells. When I say a lot, it's not just 4 copies of each, but it's literally different copies of all spells. Spells also take up like 70% of the deck or 80% of the deck, so it really has a lot of spells. Some are old ones, some are the latest ones. So yeah. First, we have the searching spell. This is the search spell of Shadow Shade. It's called Shade Party Time. Pay 1 gauge and pay 1 life. Put up to 1 Shadow Shade monster with Joe in its card name and up to 1 Shadow Shade with set from your deck into your hand and shuffle your deck. So it searches Joe, this one, and also the set spell. And I'm gonna introduce to you the set spell. The set spell is the Illusion, the Shade. So set also and Shadow Shade on your field can't be dropped by your opponent's card effect. At the start of attack phase, choose a Shadow Shade monster on your field and put up to 1 card from top of your deck into the chosen card soul. Then put 1 soul from the chosen card into your hand. So you can basically recycle spells or any card from Joe's soul and put it into your hand using the ability of Illusion the Shade. Now, it doesn't restrict you to only have 1 copy of this card on your field. So you can literally put 4 of them into the field and get 4 different cards from Joe's soul and put it into your hand every start of your attack phase. So the next one is Coronos Bante Arge. This is a time dragon draw spell attribute. Now the cast cost is pay 1 life. Its ability is draw a card. Then if your flag's reversal 2 times or more during this fight, draw a card. So it is another resource, of course. It's draw a card. Now this card is in combo with this card. This is nice one. Pay 1 gauge, draw 2 cards. So imagine if you have nice one on your hand plus the Coronos Bante Arge, it automatically gives you 3 draw cards in 1 turn. Now just in case your Shadow Shade has a lot of magic cards in your drop zone and you wanted to return them into your deck, we have Holy Magic. Now this card's ability is return 3 or more different spells from your drop zone into your deck and shuffle it. If you do, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. If you put 6 or more, draw 2 cards, and if you put 9 or more spells, deal 3 damage to your opponent. Let's fix the mat first. There you go. Then the next spell is another searching card, but it is applicable in all worlds. This is future card buddy fight. You can use this card with all flags, and its ability is choose and use one of the following two. And then put the top two cards of your deck into the gauge and put this card into the buddy zone. You may only cast these cards once per fight. Okay, it's only once per fight. So choose one of the following two. It's either put a buddy from your deck into your hand and shuffle your deck, or counter if your life or your opponent's life is 5 or less. Put an impact from your deck into your hand and shuffle your deck. Now, it's another ability is put at the start of your attack phase. If this card is in your buddy zone, for this turn, a buddy on your field gets critical +2. So it's a buff for Silhouette Joe. Now that is the first 6 different cards. We have more to go. So the next spell will be another staple. It's just like Nice One. It can be used in all Magic World deck. And this card is called Sephir's Lecture. Now, Sephir's Lecture ability is you may only cast this card if you cast a spell during this turn. Counter, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one among them into your hand and put the rest into the gauge. You may only use this card once per turn. Now, if you lack gauge or if you don't have any card in your hand but you have this card, you may use Never Say Never. Put 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. Then, if you have no more cards in your hand, draw 2 cards. So it fills up your gauge. If you are being controlled by your opponent, you can use Never Say Never. Now, let's go on with the next spell, and it's called Little Light. Put up to 1 monster from your deck into the gauge or drop zone, and then shuffle your deck and you gain 1 life. So you may see, at the first look of it, it may seem useless, but imagine pairing it with this card. Now, put the Silhouette Joe into the drop zone, and by using this card, you may use Thin Bar to get Silhouette Joe from the drop zone. So it's technically a combo. Now, the next one will be a buff card. We will start with the buff card. The first card will be the Shade. Now this is an old card, and its ability is you may only cast this card if you have a Shadow Shade on your field. Put the top card of your deck into the gauge, draw a card, and put this card into the soul of a Shadow Shade on your field. So it's a pretty resourceful card, plus an extra soul for Silhouette Joe. The next one will be another old card for Shadow Shades. Now this is also a priority card for the deck, and it's called Trick or Trick. Now choose and use one of the following 2. Put a spell from your drop zone into the soul of a Shadow Shield on your field, then put this card into the soul of a Shadow Shade on your field. Or put 2 souls from a card on your field into a drop zone. If you do, destroy a card on the field and put this card into the soul of a Shadow Shade on your field. So it's either you can buff Joe by putting another soul and plus 2 souls onto him, or you can control your opponent's field by destroying some cards on it. So that is Trick or Trick. Now another one, we have Body Option. This is a generic card. Its ability is choose and use one of the following 2. For this turn, give a buddy on your field power plus 5,000 and penetrate. Or for this turn, or put this card into a soul of a monster or item on your field. Now, if this card is in the soul of a card on your field, abilities of this and all cards on your field cannot be nullified by your opponent's card effects. So now we have a total of 12 different spells. And we still have a lot to go. So the next card, this one is a new card. This one is such an amazing card so far. This is my favorite card on my Shadow Shade deck, and it's called Shadow Future Palette. It is a generic card. Cast costs pay 1 gauge. Put this card into the soul of a buddy on your field if you do draw a card. Now, if this card is in the soul of your buddy, that card gets power plus 5,000, defense plus 5,000, and soul guard. And it cannot be destroyed, leave the field, and be rested by your opponent's card effect. So it's a total immune card. Now imagine it can't be destroyed, leave the field, rested by your opponent's card effects. Your Joe cannot be nullified, so your opponent doesn't have any option but to destroy it manually. So that is Future Palette. Now, let's go to the defensive cards. First, we have the Bird Magic Experimental. This is not a defensive card. This is both defensive and offensive. Now, you may only cast this card if you have 3 or more spells in the drop zone. So counter, you may choose and use one of the following 2. First is you stand a monster on your field, or for this turn, all cards on your opponent's field gets minus 3,000 power, minus 3,000 defense, and critical minus 1. Now, the next card will be, let's just say, my second favorite card of the deck. Now, this card is the Grace of the Sun Deity. Gosh, you really need this when you are using Shadow Shade. This is a generic card. Counter, choose and use one of the following 2. First one, for this turn, you cannot take damage by your opponent's card effects. The second is choose a card on your field, and for this turn, the chosen card cannot be destroyed or leave the field, and its soul cannot be dropped or returned to deck by your opponent's card effects. So I always choose the first one because Joe doesn't have any cancellation on effect damage cards. So this Grace of the Sun Deity is literally giving Joe and also yourself an immunity to effect damage. For example, you have a Thora as your opponent, then all of its ping damage is actually nullified by the Grace of the Sun Deity. So it gives you a total defense. Now, next one will be, it's a pretty common card and it is really useful in every deck, and it's called Body Block. Choose and use one of the following 2. Its cast cost is pay 1 gauge. First one is for this turn, the next damage you take is reduced by 3, or if your opponent's cards attacked 4 times or more, or during this turn, for this turn, you will not take damage from attacks. So if your opponent actually attacks 4 times or more, you will not take damage from attacks if you use this card. And the last one will be Fake Out. There you go. Now, you may only use this card during an attack on your opponent's turn. Put a spell from your drop zone into the bottom of the deck. Counter, nullify the attack, and draw a card. So that is all spells in the Shadow Shade. I'll be posting all cards later, the whole deck. So if you have any comments, questions regarding Shadow Shade, just leave a comment down below. Hit like and subscribe. Thank you so much.